Good morning, students. Welcome to today's class of software engineering. See, all of you joined the class in time. It's already 9:04 now. Only 106 people have joined. Okay, students, there was a slight change in the yesterday's and today's class. This is only limited for this week, and from the next week, as usual, the timetable will be followed. And let's start today's class of our software engineering. Students, is it audible?
Yes, ma'am, audible.
Okay, right. In the last class, we are seeing software myths, two minutes review of the previous class which we saw. So software myths, this is very important topic in an exam point of view, right? This is an essay question, which you will be seen in any of the set. Among the 4 sets you are having, you will be seeing any of the set this question. So what is a software myth? Generally, we saw myth is a wrong belief, misbelief. In general sense, it can be either in a real life environment or in software industry also. We are having some misbeliefs or wrong beliefs which are leading us to the failure of the project, right? So there are 3 categories of people who are involved in our software development. So the categories include managers, who will be the team leaders, okay, who are the higher officials of the company. So managers, and the next person is the customer, the major stakeholder who is giving us the project, who is involved, a primary stakeholder. And the last one is the developer, also called as a programmer or coder, anyone who is going to write the code, develop the code, right? So these are the 3 categories of people who will be involved in our software development. So these 3 categories of people have different misbelief in their perspective. Coming to the first manager, the primary person who is responsible for scheduling all the people, all the project. This manager has 3 misbeliefs, which is leading him to the failure of the project. The first misbelief is what generally the manager thinks is, already we have a standard books which are written some years ago. In that standard books, we have all the information about how to develop the software. So what the manager thinks is the programmer will go and see those standard books. He'll refer all those books and he'll prepare he'll develop the project by himself without any guidance or without any maybe what you say, for suppose if you want to know any latest technology, if it is not included in our syllabus, what we generally do is we conduct some workshops or FDPs or something by which you will be learning the latest technologies, right? So in the same way, if anything is not known to the programmer, it is the responsibility of the manager to conduct some reviews regarding the technologies, all those things. But manager, what he generally thinks is, instead of conducting all these things, he generally thinks that bookish knowledge is enough. The developer will go refer the book and he'll develop the software by himself. This see, while writing representing this question in exam point of view, you need to write the myths, all the myths, and you need to write the reality regarding the myths. So myth is a misbelief. You need to write this first misbelief and you need to write what generally happens in reality. So question and the reality, this is what you need to write while representing in papers. So this is the first myth. And the second myth, what generally the manager thinks is, if I get behind the schedule, if I'm running out of the time, if my deadline has already reached, then what I'll do is I'll include more programmers in the end, then they'll complete the work immediately. This is what generally the misbelief manager has. But in reality, that is not the true. Why? Because when new people are involved, educating all those new people takes much time. Okay. And the third misbelief, what the manager thinks is, generally, if I'm unable to complete my project, then I'll outsource the project to some third party company. I'll give the projects for third party to develop. I'll ask them to develop and I can just relax and sit. See, the third party will continue the work. This is what the manager thinks. But in reality, it is false. Why? Because if the company, if the manager is unable to manage and schedule all the things properly, and if he failed in doing so, he can't educate some other third party person to do all the things, right? He can't even provide the detailed information that will be helpful for the third party to carry on their work. So these are the three manager myths. And coming to the customer myths, customer is the here the customer is a primary stakeholder. So already I told you, stakeholders are the person who are directly or indirectly involved in the development of the project, okay, who will get beneficiated by the outcome of the project, who is the end person who is going to use that project finally. So the primary stakeholder is the customer. So this customer, generally he has two common misbeliefs in his mind. What he generally thinks is, I'll generally give one objective of the project and it is sufficient for the developer to write the programs. He generally thinks that I'll just give the statement of purpose, only one objective I'll be giving to the developer. He'll do the rest of the things, he will carry on with the rest of the things and he'll develop the project by himself. Yes, the developer can do all the things by his own, but he will be doing it in his own perspective, right? The customer will not be satisfied with the thoughts of the developer, right? So the customer needs to give the clear picture of what he wants in detail to the programmer. Then only finally the programmer will develop as per the customer needs and the customer will be satisfied by the end of the day. So this is the first myth. And the second myth is, generally what the customer thinks is, in software characteristics, we told that software is flexible, software is adaptable, in the sense new things can be added into the software at any point of time. So software is having that characteristic. So generally what the customer thinks is, as the software requirements continuously change, but the change can be easily accommodated because the software is flexible. So what the customer thinks is, I'll keep on changing the requirements requirements at whatever phase the project is. The developer will be able to include all the changes in the software. Why? Because software is flexible. That's what the customer thinks. But in reality, what generally happens is, yes, the software is flexible, it is having the features of adapting all the changes, but the time at which the changes are required has a major impact on the project budget or release, right? Why? Because if the changes are included, if changes are given by the customer at the end stage of the project, in the sense, if the developer is in some testing stage, he has completed his coding and he is testing the project now, when then the customer comes into picture and says that I want this new feature to be added, then it will take lot time. Why? Because he need to go back again from the beginning and do all the process, right? All the design should be included, then only he can start again the coding and then the testing. So all these things take much time. So finally the project will be delayed, right? So this is what in reality generally happens. So these are the two customer myths. And lastly, we saw the practitioner, nothing but the developer or the programmer. He is having some misbeliefs in his mind. Generally, what the programmer thinks is, I'll write the program and get it work. Our job is done. So generally, what the programmer thinks is, I can only the executable code is enough for the successfulness of that project. If whatever program I'm writing, if that program is executing without errors, generally what he thinks is, yes, my project will be successful and I can leave that project. This is what the generally programmer thinks. But in reality, what generally happens is, if you complete writing your program, that's not the end. Why? Because most of the time in industries, you need to spend most of the time in maintenance, not only in coding. Coding is just a simpler part. Coding is generally area which takes very less time, right? If you are having if you are technically knowledgeable person, it just takes very less amount of time to write the code, right? And where it takes more amount of time is in the maintenance part. Why? Because when the product is given to the customer, delivered to the customer will go through it, he'll give you the feedback, and whatever changes the customer is asking to do, you need to do all those things even after the completion of the project. So all those comes under maintenance period, right? So most of the time it will be taking in the maintenance. So this is the first myth and the reality. And the second myth is, until I get the program running, I have no way of assessing its quality. So generally what the programmer thinks is, when only when I complete my coding part, then only I'll be able to judge whether the product is of quality one or not. What he generally thinks is, in the sense, by the end of the project only, I can clarify or I can justify whether my product is of quality one or not. So this is not what goes in reality. Why? Because quality measures will be included in all the phases of the software development, but not in the end. So unless unless and until you include the quality features from the beginning, finally your end product will not be of a quality one, right? Even if you are in requirement phase, or even in your planning phase, even if you are in a modeling phase, in all the phases you should follow all the quality measures, whatever rules that are given by the quality assurance team. You need to include all those features, then only finally the end product will be a successful one. So this is what generally is done in reality. So the third one is the only deliverable work product for a successful project is a working program. So which I already told you. Generally, the program thinks only the final working program, nothing but the executable code is only the main thing, only the important thing. The rest of the things are waste of time. This is what the programmer thinks. No, but this is not true in reality. Why? Because along with the working program, you should give all the documents that are necessary for a new person to know regarding that project, right? See, you're the person who completed that project and you will be leaving the company after some period of time. You'll not stay in the company decades, right? What generally happens is, when a new people come into the project and if they want to work in that product, only the executable code will not help them to gain the knowledge of the project. They need to study the clear documentation about what has been done internally while developing that product. What are the changes that has done in requirements, how they planned for project development, how they develop the design part. So all these things should be known to the programmer. Then only he will have a detailed picture of that product, right? So this is what happens in reality. And the fourth one is, software engineering will make us create voluminous or unnecessary documentation and will invariably slow us down. This is what the programmer thinks. So programmer, what he thinks is, all the documentation part, it is taking much time for me to develop. So why am I asked to develop all those things? All these are unnecessary things. Generally, the programmer thinks in that way, but that is not true in reality. So students, did you understand this myths concept? So please respond to me. We saw it in detail in the previous class. I just gave you a review of this now. Did you understand the concept?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right. Now coming to our next concept. Next concept is a general process model. Coming to this general process model, in the previous classes we saw what are all the process, what is the definition of a process. I told that process involves collection of activities, actions and tasks to do any work product. So suppose if you are asked to develop some application, some working product, in order to develop that application, that working product, what are all the activities you need to involve in that? What are all the actions you need to involve in that? What are the tasks you need to perform internally? Some flow, what is the flow you need to perform internally, so that finally your product will be developed. So that is what we call as process, right? So the concept is generic process model. Here, generic in the sense it is a general process which is involved in all the process models. See, in the next slides, we'll be seeing different process models. See, right? In different process models, every process model has its advantage and disadvantage. So you can develop your product by using any of the process models. Which kind of process model will you select will depends upon your application, right? Depends upon your requirements. For suppose if you are having more amount of time, right, years of time to develop your process model, then you'll go for the basic thing, waterfall model. You'll take that waterfall model and you keep on developing your project, right? For suppose if more number of risks are involved in your project, right, then you'll go for spiral model, right? If you want to release your product in versions in different increments, then you'll go for increment model. So we'll be seeing all these things in the next slides. So what we mean to say is, which kind of process models you want to include you want to use this, it depends upon your requirements. So here we are saying that it's a generic process model, in the sense it is the general process which will be involved in developing any process, any software project, right? So general process involved in developing any software product is called as generic process models. So here, coming to the theory part, a process was defined as a collection of activities, actions, and tasks that are performed when some work product is to be created. So this is what we do. We want to create any work product. In order to create that work product, what are all the activities, actions, and tasks that should be involved comes under process, right? Each of these activities, actions, and tasks reside within a framework or model that defines the relationship with the process and with one another. So all the activities, so in the previous class we told that you will be having 5 activities involved in any process. What are all those 5 activities? 5 framework activities. So can any of you tell me what are the 5 framework activities? These 5 framework activities will be common for all the process models. Can any of you tell me what are the 5 framework activities which we saw in previous classes?
Communication, planning, modeling, construction, deployment.
Yes, these are the 5 activities which are common for all the process models, right? So each of these activities, actions, and tasks reside within a framework. So all these 5 activities, they will be residing within a framework. In the sense, we'll have a common template. In this template, all these 5 activities will be residing, will be sitting there, right? And the relation and the relationship within the process and with one another. So all these 5 framework activities, how the process flow goes on, whether these activities should be carried out one after the other, or whether these activities can be carried out parallelly, or whether these activities should be carried out iteratively. So all this will be defined within this framework, right? For example, you want to play caroms. That carom board is the framework for you to play that game, right? Within that framework, within that board, you can play the game in different ways, right? So one way is only the opposite person will be striking only blacks. One person will be striking blacks and one person will be striking only whites. That is one sort of playing the game. That is one sort of action by which the game can be played. So another way is you'll be playing some business, right? That is another. So within that framework, you can play the game in different ways, right? So in the same sense, this is the process framework. This process framework, it includes 5 activities within that framework. How those 5 activities flow will be, right? The flow can be in different ways. That is what we are saying in process models, right? See this diagram. This is the software process framework. Within this framework, you'll be having 5 framework activities. I already told you, along with these 5 framework activities, you'll be having umbrella activities which are always being running in the background, right? So can any of you give example of any one umbrella activity? I already told you in the previous class different umbrella activities which will be running in the background.
Software project tracking and control.
Okay, quality maintenance, right? All these are umbrella activities, security. So there is no need for you to wait until wait for some amount of time for this to achieve these umbrella activities. This always be running in the background. Same as your antivirus software, which is always being running in my laptop in the background, right? There is no, I'm not giving it a particular time or schedule to run. Whenever I open my desktop, it will always be running in the background. In the same way, in the framework, wherever you are, in any of the activity you are, there will be different umbrella activities that are running in the background, right? So in this framework, see, this is framework activity 1. Nothing but our activity 1 is communication, right? And next you will be having framework activity 2, planning, framework activity 3, modeling, framework activity 4, coding part, framework activity 5, deployment. So see, this squares represents one of the frameworks activities, right? So this is framework activity 1. So on, you'll be having until n number of framework activities. Here we'll be having 5 number of framework activities in our process models, right? Now coming into this framework activity in detail, I'll be having actions. In this framework activity, communication activity, I'll have different actions performed. Action number 1, action number 2, action number 3. See here we are writing 1.1. Next 1.2, 1.3, so on 1.k. You'll have k number of actions that will be performed in this communication activity, right? When coming into the action in detail, I'll be having the task set. So I'm going into the narrow, right? I started from a broader objective communication. I have gone in detail until a narrow part. So action 1, in order to complete this action 1, I need to perform this task. In order to complete action 2, I need to perform some other task. So action K to complete, I need to perform some other task. For example, you are planning to go somewhere for a tour, right? So your activity is going for a tour. To complete that activity, tour activity, you need to perform different actions internally. In order to finally achieve your goal, you need to perform different actions. Maybe the first action is, for going to a tour, you need to plan your booking, right? Your ticket, right? So how you need to take the ticket, what are the maybe which dates or how much period of time you will be spending there. So regarding booking your tickets, that is one action, right? For action number 1, that is booking your tickets in detail, if you go, how much cost you should spend there, how you are going to take your path, whether you'll go by an airways or railways or bus. So all these are different tasks in booking the ticket, right? So booking is one action. To complete that action, I'll be having certain tasks to be completed, right? So that is action number 1. And action number 2, regarding traveling only. Action number 2 is maybe your what to say, if you want to buy some new things which are not there with you till now, you want to buy some clothes, or you need to buy some eatables which are necessary. So second action is shopping. Action number 2 is shopping, related to your tour only, related to your activity. Second action is shopping. In order to perform shopping, you need to perform some tasks internally, right? So where to go for shopping, how much time to spend for shopping, how much cost, what are all the products I need to buy. So this is a second action. Within the action 2, shopping, I'll be having different tasks to be performed. So same way, when coming to our project also, project development also, activity 1 is communication. In order to achieve that communication activity, I need to perform different actions internally. Actions again include some set of tasks. So right. So process definition, what we told is, it is group of activities, group of 5 activities. Activity definition, what we told is, it is group of actions. Action 1, action 2, so on until action K. Action definition, what we told is, it is group of tasks, task sets. So this is the common model which will be used by all the process models. So coming to the theory part of that one, in the above figure, we saw the general process model. So each software engineer action is defined by a task set that identifies. See, here we are saying activity involves actions. Framework activity involves actions, and coming to action, it involves different task set. So what is present what is included in the task set is the work tasks that are to be completed, the work products that will be produced, the quality assurance point that will be required, the milestones that will be used to indicate progress. So these are all the things that are involved in the task set. So right, for example, see here an example. I have given the activity 1 as communication. So our first framework activity is communication. In this communication, I'm taking 2 actions. I'm taking 2 actions. See, action 1 is requirement gathering. So communication, in the sense, what we need to do in communication, you need to communicate with the client. So if it is a small project, very less budget project, a smaller project, communication with the client, first action what I'll do is, I'll gather the requirements through a phone call. This is the action I need to perform. So I need to communicate with the client by a phone call. In this action, what task I need to perform is, while communicating through phone call, I'll make contact with the stakeholder in the phone. This is the first task I need to perform. I'll call him by phone. Next, I'll discuss with him and take the notes. I'll discuss with him regarding all the requirements, and whatever he's saying, I'll take all the brief notes of that one, and I'll organize that notes into a brief written statements of requirement. So these are the in detail things what I'll be doing while I'll communicating with the client, right? So activity 1 is communication. In that, action 1 is gathering the requirements by phone call. For gathering the requirements by phone call, in detail, I need to perform all these tasks, right? And in this activity, communication, maybe the second action is, after gathering all the requirements, I'm thinking to finalize that requirements document, right? So I gave the action 2 name as requirement finalizing. So in this requirement finalizing, what are the tasks I need to perform is, I need to prioritize all the requirements. The client gave me number of requirements. I need to prioritize all them in order, right? I need to identify the areas of uncertainty. If any of the data is inconsistent, if any of the data that is given by the stakeholder is inconsistent or ambiguous, I need to identify all those things and build a final list that contain features and functions required by the stakeholder. And finally, I'll build one document. I'll make ready with one document which includes all the features and functions that the stakeholder. So this is action 2. In communication, you can have again action 3, action 4, action 5. All these actions are related to communication, right? Similarly, if I take the activity 2 as planning, in planning I'll have number of actions. Every action includes some of the tasks set, right? So this is the framework activity. Hope you understood the concept. So process model includes 5 framework activities. Every activities include actions. Actions include tasks. So see, this is the framework activity 1 for communication. In communication, I gave you example as action 1 as requirement gathering through phone call. In this requirement for the phone call, what are the tasks you will be performed? Action 2, I told that requirement finalizing. In that requirement finalizing, what are the tasks you will be performed? So all this square box related to communication itself. And next you will have box related to planning. Activity 2 is planning. In planning, what are the actions? While planning, how you need to plan, what is action 1, action 2. So in detail, what are the tasks? And next activity is modeling. While modeling, how you will plan, what are the actions you will take. So the thing goes on in this way, right? So in any generic process framework, you will have 5 framework activities, which we already saw in the big. There is no need for me to explain all these things repeatedly, right? These are the activities which we saw previously. So what we are saying here is, in any framework activity, you will have 5 activities, which we saw previously. Now coming to process flow. The process flow describes how the framework activities and the actions and tasks that occur within each framework activity are organized with respect to sequence of time and is illustrated in the figure. So coming to the definition of process flow. See, flow in the sense, we already saw that process contains 5 framework activities. How those 5 framework activities work, how the flow of those activities will be, that is described by the process flow. So it contains it tells us how the activities are organized with respect to sequence of time and are illustrated in the figure we'll be seeing now. So see, process flows, we'll be having 4 types of process flows. The first process flow is, see, the first one is the linear process flow. So these are the 5 framework activities. If these activities flow is linear, if it is sequential, then you'll say that it is a linear process flow, right? So linear process flow execute each of the 5 framework activities in sequence, beginning with communication and culminating with the deployment, which is shown in the following figure, and ending with the deployment, right? So this is first communication. After the communication phase is completed, then only you can move on to the planning, right? While you are in planning, there is no way for you to go back and again make communication with the client. So this task should be completed. Communication should be completed fully, then only you will move back to the next flow. This is completed fully, then only you will move back to modeling, next construction, next. So all the activities flow will be sequential. That is the reason you call this as a linear process. This is just looking like a train, right? Railway bogies. This is bogie 1, bogie 2, bogie 3. All these are in sequential order, right? And the next process model is an iterative process flow, right? So iterative process flow, generally when we go for this kind of process flow is, if all the information is not present for you in the beginning itself. So see here, first you are in communication phase, you completed communication and moved on to the planning phase. But while you are planning, while you are preparing the SRS document, you have some questions, some ambiguity arrays there. So you are unable to move forward. Then what you do is, again you go back, again you make communication with the client and clear all the issues with him, right? When this is completed, again you move on to the next phase. So again you are going back while in each iteration, right? This is what happens. Next, you completed your planning, you're in modeling phase now, you're designing now, designing your flow charts. While flow chart preparation, maybe by the end you're not satisfied with your designs, then again you go back, again you start designing from the beginning, right? So these iterations can be from any phase to any phase, not that I showed for an arrow from here to here, so only from here to here you can communicate. It can be from modeling to communication, from modeling to planning, from any phase to any phase. If again you can go on with the iterations, right? So see here, after construction, after finally completing the code, when you are testing, you got an error, you are unable to rectify those errors. You came to know that because the client gave you some wrong information, that is why the project is not ending up with errors. So what you'll do, again you'll go back, again you'll communicate with the client and make him justify regarding all those requirements. Again you'll move forward, and finally the deployment. So this is an iterative process flow. So activities will flow in iterative manner. So this is the second process flow. And the third one is evolutionary process flow. Here the execution of activities will be done in circular manner. So generally when we'll go for this kind of process flow is, if you want to release your product in versions, right? You don't have much time. If the client wants you to complete the project immediately, you don't have much time, right? So you can't release all the project at once. In that stage, what you do is you first complete all the 5 phases. You communicate, you plan, model, construct, and deployment, and then you release the product. You say it as first version of release, right? Until then, some part of the software is released. And next, again, you start from the beginning. Again, you communicate, take the rest of the requirements from the client, again do all the 5 activities and release version 2. So same as our Bahubali 1, Bahubali 2. So movie is not released all at once. So it is released in 2 parts. So part 1, part 2, part 3 if necessary, so on. So right, this is the evolutionary process model is the thing which is used in present day environment mostly. Why? Because our product will be released in terms of versions here, right? See your WhatsApp updates also, you'll be having different versions, right? Version 1 is having some features. Next, some other new features are included in that, and version 2 is released, version 3, so on, right? And next one is the parallel process flow. It executes one or more activities in parallel with other activities. See this as a diagram resembles. Here in parallel process flow, first thing is you need to divide your resources, right? Maybe if it is human resources, if you are having some 20 people or maybe or some 15 people involved in your project, then you first of all you need to divide those human resources, right? For communication, you'll include some 5 people. For planning, you'll include some 5 people. For modeling, you'll include some five people. First of all, the human should be available in all the phases. Now see, you are communicating with the client here. Some people are confirmed, 5 members are communicating with the client, and all the information is given to the planning people. And these people have prepared their plan. They are going on preparing the plan. In the meanwhile, with the information given by the communication people, some people has already started their modeling, right? Some people has already started the modeling. So right, again see here, while by the information given by the planning people, again some modeling is being. So this is a multitasking, right? Which all the students will be having, right? Our class will be going on in this period of time from 9 to 10. And I see many people whose WhatsApp status will be updated in 9 to 10 period only, right? So you are capable of doing multitasking. At one way you are able to listen the class, and the other way you are able to work with your phone, right? So all this comes under multitasking, right? So see here, parallel process flow, again, as I told you previously, it does not include only these phases. Maybe construction can be done parallelly, right? From modeling phase, maybe construction can be done by a group of people parallelly, right? So any people can be doing all these things. So right, so what we are seeing here, in generic process model, we saw what are the activities involved, what are the actions, what are the tasks, right? And in this framework, you are having different activities, right? These activities flow can be in different ways. That is what we call as process flow. In process flow describes us how these activities flow can be. Whether these activities flow is linear, whether these activities flow is parallel, whether these activities flow is iterative. So all these things are discussed in process flow. So you are having four process flow model, process flow, linear and iterative and evolutionary versions release, and next is parallel tasking, multi-scheduling, right? Your students, right? So this is all related to software process framework. And next, coming to subtopic in that framework, process patterns. Now what is a process pattern? So generally, one second, it's 140. So now coming to this process pattern, every software team encounters problem as it moves through software process. See, while you are developing any software product, every software team will encounter some sort of problems. They'll face some sort of problems, different kinds of problems in their development process, right? So it will be helpful, it would be useful if proven solutions to these problems are readily available to the team, so that the problems could be addressed and resolved quickly. See, you know that while you are going through this journey, for suppose you are traveling somewhere, you know that while going through the journey, definitely you will face some sort of problems, right? After traveling to this much distance, definitely your diesel or petrol will be over in your vehicle, right? After this much traveling, definitely you know that you'll feel hungry at that point of time. So right, these are the problems you'll be facing in your journey. It would be beneficial if you know the solutions for all those problems in the beginning itself, right? If you are running out of your diesel, it will be helpful if you know the area where the petrol bunk is present before itself, where your food court will be present before itself, right? If you know all this information before, even though you face that problem in between, then definitely we'll be able to solve that problem quickly, right? In the same way, while developing any software project also, there are different problems that are faced, which many of the people have experienced, right? So what we are saying is, if all those problems and our solutions for all those problems are readily available for us, then the problems can be addressed and resolved quickly. So that is what we call as process pattern. So process pattern describes a process related problem that is encountered during software engineering work. So any problem that can occur during software engineering work identifies the environment in which the problem has been encountered and suggests one or more proven solutions to the problem. So what this process pattern tells us is, it is going to give us all the problems that will come while software engineering work, and it is going to identify the environment in which the problem is going to occur, at what the kind of environment that product that error will occur, and suggests us and also gives us one or more proven solution to this problem. It also gives us the solutions to that problem. You can include any sort of solution and clear that problem, right? So this will be helpful if process pattern is present. This will be helpful for us in product development, definitely, right? So by combining patterns, a software team can solve problems and construct a problem that best meets the project. Patterns can be defined at any level of effort. So this is the definition for process pattern, right? Now coming to an author called Ambler, he proposed a template for describing the process pattern. So he gave us a standard template. See, while you're writing a program, you're having a standard template, right? First of all, you need to write a comment. Next, you need to include your header files in C language, I'm saying. First, you will write the comment. Next, you'll include your header files. Next, you will start your main program. Next, your coding part. Next, end of the main, or next, any sub functions. So this is the comment template you follow. In the same way, while describing the process patterns also, this author gave us a common template, right? What this template include is, first one is the pattern name. The pattern is given a meaningful name describing it within the context of software process. For example, technical reviews. One of the problem name is technical reviews. While you are conducting technical reviews, what are the problems that will be faced, right? This is the pattern name. Next, next one is environment. The environment in which the pattern is encountered. So students, are you able to hear me? Students, are you able to hear me? Students, are you able to hear me? Students?